Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on Root Metrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. second half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
It's last call for football on FanDuel, with one last round of rewards every day through Super Bowl 60. One last week for one more chance. Visit the FanDuel app all week long for limited time boost every day until football runs out. FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 60.
New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
All right, we're back. This is WGCK AM 1090. Always on, always talking. If you're just joining us or if you wisely decided to step away for a few minutes, you missed the final part of our last hour's discussion on whether the federal government has been quietly replacing pigeons with surveillance drones since the early 1990s. And for the record, no. It's just past midnight. I'm Marianne Caldwell. This is the Night Signal. Let's go to the phones. Jim's been holding. Jim, thanks for waiting. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be had.
What? What's your area of expertise?
Well, I just happen to be hosting. They're on their way through Chicago, the Furtive Family of Fine Frogs.
Furtive Family of Fine Frogs?
Yeah, it's a water thrill show.
I suppose it would be, yes.
They represent 4 generations of frogs.
Fine frogs. Fine furtive frogs.
In fact, the Furtive family does it all, running the boat, playing the music, the cleaning up.
Cleaning up? Well, it's after the act. Somebody has to. You know, I've never seen a frog act on the radio, Jim. I'm a little confused as to precisely what it is that they do.
Well, I gotta tell you, our star of the show, Flam Furtive, will not be appearing tonight.
Oh, is he ill?
Well, he had an accident the other day.
What happened?
Well, I guess I can tell you about show business's seamier side. He tried to sniff coke, but somehow he got his head stuck in the bottle.
Well, that'll happen to you. I realize that there are dangers involved in the fast life, as it were. Who will be substituting for him?
His brother, who happens to be the second star, Flipper Legs Furtive.
Legs Furtive, yes?
Now, one thing I've got to caution you on.
Yes.
They're used to performing in bigger tubs. In their last show, they played at the Prince Charming Suite at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
The Prince Charming Suite?
Am I allowed to plug Caesar's Palace?
Sure, Caesar's Palace in Vegas.
If one of the representatives wishes to acknowledge my mention, I do accept packages from 9 to 2 every day. However, because we're using a smaller tub, we're using a safety tank adjacent to the tub.
I'm sure we all feel better that we're doing that, Jim.
And since we're working for gratis, being strict amateurs in the strict sense...
You're not paid professionals because we have our rules here.
Well, they will be working with the lid up. That's in case... See, what they do is Flipper is going to be taken around by a miniature boat, which is powered by Rayovac batteries. Can I say Rayovac?
Yeah?
Well, if any of the folks from Rayovac are listening...
I know, Jim. Right.
Freckles Furtive did knock the battery off Conrad's shoulder. It was unfortunate that Freckles couldn't leap away quite quick enough.
This is a new game called Squish, yeah?
Anyway, he's going to leap through a burning hoop.
A burning hoop, because of course he is.
I think that's good enough.
Well, I think that's going to be a terrific act. Now, are the performers the Furtive Family of Fine Frogs already?
They're ready. In fact, we've got Sam, the sagacious seal, who's going to tell them to start their engine.
All right.
He was born on December 25th, a real Christmas seal.
I suppose, yes, a Christmas seal moving right along. Do you want to tell them to go ahead and rev it up? Sam,
Okay,
sounds like a
Sam,
complicated... I cannot read. Okay, Sam, sounds like complicated instructions.
Well, I think we got it going. Yeah, here we go. Here the boat's moving. The boat's moving, yeah, Flipper is getting on his ski.
Oh, he does this from a ski?
Yeah, he does it from a ski. He's taking the boat around.
Is the fire going in the hoop?
The fire's going now. We're pouring a little mimosa on it to get it moving. He's moving around. He's taking another turn. He's almost up to full power. Yeah, he's shaking his little paw. This is it.
This is the one.
He's coming through. He's through the hoop. But he overshot the tub, and he's in the tank. He's in the tank.
The safety tank.
Let's get these engines off. Let's get him out of the tank. They look okay? Wait a minute. Don't flush. Damn, I lost lost another frog.
I lose more frogs like that. I'll tell you, it's not easy, Jim, being in show business.
What a tragedy this has turned into.
From my side also, Jim.
The Furtive family's in shock. Fingers Furtive is playing some appropriate music on his Hammond organ. Can I say Hammond?
If anybody from Hammond is listening.
I'll tell you, it's hard to believe the career of Flipper's Lake Furtive had come to such a tragic end. It was only now that he was flush with success, so to speak. His family has hopped around the tank to take one last look at where it happened. I see Flicka, Flacka, and Flucka, the Furtive triplets, comforting the patriarch of the Furtive family, Frank Fireball Furtive. This frog has seen some tragedy in his life. So long, Flipper. You were more than a frog to me. Someday when the going gets tough and a frog won't feel like taking the leap, I'll remind him of you and ask him to jump one more time for the Flipper. So long, pal.
Jim, truly a moving memorial to the Furtive family of 5 frogs.
I think it all happened on your show.
I've got another caller who's been holding. Good luck topping that. You're on the night signal. Go ahead.
Hi, Marianne. Thanks for taking the call.
You're welcome. What's your name?
It's Ellen. I used to work for a small town outside of St. Louis, city clerk's office.
All right, Ellen, and you're calling because?
Because something happened there that I still can't explain, and I keep hearing people tell it wrong.
Tell it right then.
Okay. So, it started as a ghost tour.
Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on RootMetrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. Second Half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.
Ellen did not believe in ghosts. She had never believed in them, not as a child, not as an adult, and certainly not when she took the job in the city clerk's office of a small town just outside St. Louis. Belief, in her experience, was a luxury for people who didn't have to keep records. When she first moved there, she described the town to friends as pleasant. It was the kind of word that meant nothing bad but also very little good. It had a courthouse square, a handful of restaurants that closed early, and an almost aggressive pride in its own history. Every lamppost had a plaque. Every building had a story. Most of the stories were repeated often enough that they'd stopped sounding true. Ellen had taken the job because it was stable. The benefits were decent, the hours predictable, and the work was exactly what it claimed to be. She processed permits. She recorded minutes. She filed zoning requests. She answered the phone when someone wanted to know why their fence was suddenly in violation of an ordinance no one could quite remember passing. She was good at it. Paperwork made sense to her. If something existed, it left a trail. The town didn't start out haunted. It wasn't one of those places with a tragic past or a famous disaster. No great fires, no unsolved massacres. It had simply existed, quietly and persistently, since the mid-1800s, accumulating records and ordinances the way other towns accumulated myths. The ghost tour came later. Much later, and even then, Ellen hadn't thought much of it. At first. The idea for the ghost tour didn't start because anyone passionately believed their home or place of business was haunted. It came from a budget meeting. Ellen remembered the night clearly because she had taken the minutes. The tourism board had run out of new ideas, and the old ones weren't working anymore. The fall festival had plateaued. The historical reenactments drew fewer people every year. Someone floated the idea of a wine walk, which was immediately shot down for liability reasons. Someone else suggested a craft beer weekend, which stalled when no one could agree on what counted as a local brew. It was the assistant director of tourism who finally said it. Ghost tours do well in towns like ours. No one asked why. No one asked if there were ghosts. They talked instead about logistics, routes, insurance, scheduling, a disclaimer drafted by the city attorney that managed to say nothing while covering everything. Ellen noted it all down, the way she always did, already aware that if this thing happened, it would eventually land on her desk in one form or another. The tour launched that spring. It was modest, a volunteer guide with a lantern, a printed script heavy on atmosphere and light on citations, stories about former residents, old buildings, near misses with fires that never quite materialized. The word ghost did a lot of work, standing in for anything vague enough to sound mysterious without inviting follow-up questions. The first few weeks went smoothly. Attendance hovered around a dozen people per tour. Ellen's involvement was limited to approving the permit and fielding a handful of complaints from residents annoyed by footsteps and voices passing their homes after dark. She didn't attend the tour herself. She had no reason to. From her perspective, it was exactly what it claimed to be, a civic distraction, something harmless, something temporary, the kind of thing towns tried when they didn't know what else to do. And for a while, that's all it was. The office was quiet enough for Ellen to hear the hum of the streetlights outside. She was halfway through sliding her laptop into her bag when her desk phone buzzed. The caller ID flashing a name she recognized immediately. Marcus, one of their most reliable guides. Ellen sighed and picked up. "Marcus, it's late. Don't tell me the bus broke down again."
No, nothing like that,
Marcus said, his voice sounding uncharacteristically hushed. He hesitated for a beat before continuing.
Hey, quick question. Did the city finally find some extra budget? Did we hire actors for the tour?
Ellen frowned, pinning the phone between her shoulder and ear as she reached for her keys. "Not unless the mayor is paying them out of his own pocket. No actors, Marcus. Why?" There was a long silence on the other end, punctuated only by the faint sound of city traffic in the background.
Right,
Marcus finally said.
Well, there was someone standing near the third stop tonight, right by the Iron Gate. He wasn't interacting with the group, and he wasn't exactly doing anything. He was just there.
"Probably just a local pulling a prank," Ellen said, trying to inject some logic into the conversation. "You know how people love to mess with the ghost tours."
I figured it was a prank, too.
Marcus said.
I was actually going to use him as a prop, tell the group he was part of the show. But Ellen, by the time I finished the story and turned back to point him out, he was gone. There wasn't anywhere for him to run.
Ellen made a note. People saw things in the dark all the time. The second call came 2 nights later. Then another. Different guides, same stop. Ellen told herself the reports were coincidence. Coincidence was something she understood. People gathered in groups at night, walked the same route, listened to the same stories, and expected to see something unusual. Of course, they did. That didn't make it real. It made it predictable. The calls continued anyway. The shop owner on the square mentioned that someone had been standing outside his window during the tour just long enough to make him look up from the register. When he glanced again, the person was gone. A couple from out of town said they'd noticed a figure near the old hotel, though neither of them could agree on what the figure was wearing. One guide reported that his lantern light had dimmed for a moment, though he admitted the batteries were probably old. Ellen logged each call the same way she logged everything else. Date, time, name, location, notes. She didn't argue with anyone. She didn't validate them either. She asked clarifying questions and wrote down the answers. It was only after the 4th report that she noticed something small and irritating. Every sighting occurred at the same stop. Not just the same general area, but the exact point where the guide paused to tell a particular story. The old hotel, the one that had burned in the early 1900s and had been rebuilt with just enough of its original facade left standing to justify a plaque. Ellen pulled the permit file and checked the route map. The tour passed plenty of places that would have made more sense. an abandoned house, a former jail, a closed church. But the reports all traced back to the hotel. Nowhere else. She told herself it was because the story was longer, because people stood still there. Maybe the lighting was worse. The silence in Ellen's office didn't last long. She hadn't even made it to the elevator when her phone vibrated again. This time the screen read Julian, a younger guy who usually spent more time worrying about his hair than the history he was reciting. "Julian?" Ellen answered, her voice tight. "Don't tell me you saw an actor, too."
I wish I could tell you that,
Julian said.
but this is different. Usually the weird stuff happens once I start the theatrics. You know, once I've got the mood set.
"And this didn't?" Ellen asked.
He was already there, Julian whispered. I hadn't even opened my mouth. I was just gathering the group near the commemorative plaque, checking my watch. He was just standing off to the side, right under the street lamp. It looked like he was waiting for a bus that was never going to come.
Ellen felt a prickle of unease. "Did he say anything? Approach the group?"
Nothing, Julian replied. He just stood there, perfectly still. I actually stopped to look at him, thinking maybe he was a late addition to the tour. I turned my back for 3 seconds to usher the stragglers toward the plaque, and when I turned around to start the intro, he was gone, just empty pavement.
Ellen leaned against the cool metal of the elevator door. "Julian, are you sure you didn't just imagine it? It's dark out there."
I didn't imagine it, Ellen, Julian said. The tourists were pointing at him. At least 10 of them asked me if he was part of the ambiance. Most of the group saw him.
"And what did he do?" Ellen asked, her voice dropping. "Did he gesture? Did he look at them?"
That's the strange part, Ellen, Julian said. He didn't do anything at all.
Ellen wrote that down, then closed the file and sat back in her chair. It was late. The building was quiet. She could hear the faint hum of the lights overhead, the same sound she'd heard every evening since she'd started the job. She still wasn't worried, but she did start bringing the route map home with her, and she did start noticing how precisely the tour kept time. The first time a guide said he had been corrected, Ellen assumed he was exaggerating. The sun was barely up when Ellen's phone vibrated against her nightstand. She didn't even have to look at the screen to know who it was. "Marcus," she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. "It's 7 in the morning. Please tell me this is about a payroll error."
I'm still at the site, Ellen,
Marcus said. His voice was low and tight, the kind of whisper someone uses when they're afraid of being overheard in an empty room.
I stayed after the 12 a.m. route ended. I needed to process what happened.
Ellen sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Okay, talk to me. Was it the same figure?"
Yeah, but it wasn't watching this time.
Marcus took a shaky breath.
I was at the third stop doing the bit about the Great Hotel Fire. You know, the one where I talk about the lost guest in room 402. The flourish I added last year for the tourists.
"The one you admit is 90% creative license," Ellen noted.
Right. Well, I got to the part where I described the guest jumping from the balcony, and I saw him. He was standing right by the plaque, close enough that the woman in the front row actually stepped back to give him space.
Marcus paused.
I felt this urge to keep going, like if I stopped, I'd be acknowledging something I wasn't ready for. So I doubled down. I started describing the silk robe the guest was wearing.
"And?"
He shook his head, Ellen.
Marcus whispered.
Not like he was angry, just slow, deliberate, no, like I was a student getting a math problem wrong at the chalkboard.
Ellen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "He corrected you?"
I stopped dead.
Marcus said.
The crowd thought it was a dramatic beat. One guy even laughed and asked if the actor could hear us. I was so rattled, I dropped the theatrics. I looked at the plaque and read the cold, hard facts. I gave the actual date from the record, the one that's less exciting. I said the fire started in the basement, not the kitchen.
"What did he do then?"
He nodded.
Marcus replied, a note of awe creeping into his fear.
A single slow nod, like he was satisfied. And then, just like before, I blinked, and the spot next to the plaque was empty.
Ellen checked the guide's script after the call. She pulled the original source documents from the archive and read through them again, line by line. The guide had been wrong. Not egregiously, but enough to matter. The date he'd embellished had been off by 2 years, the cause of the fire less dramatic than he'd made it sound. Over the next week, the pattern repeated. A whispered correction. A pause when a name was skipped. A figure turning slightly toward a building the guide hadn't mentioned yet. Tourists began telling the guides when they'd left something out. Attendance increased. Ellen noticed the spike first in the numbers. Refund requests dropped to 0. Ticket sales doubled, then tripled. The tourism board was ecstatic. They stopped asking questions and started printing more flyers. Ellen wanted to know exactly when the corrections happened, whether the figure ever appeared during the wrong story, whether it reacted to improvisation or only to mistakes. The answers were uncomfortably consistent. The figure never interrupted silence. It never appeared early, and it never reacted unless the story drifted. One night, Julian didn't show up, and the tour still ran. Ellen heard about it the next morning, secondhand, through an email chain that had already grown longer than it needed to be. The guide had been delayed by a flat tire. He'd called ahead, expecting the tour to be canceled or at least postponed. Someone lit a lantern. No one was sure who. The crowd drifted to the first stop out of habit, then to the second. By the time they reached the hotel, they were already quiet. The figure was there. It stood where it always had, near the plaque, angled just enough that the words caught the light. When the group stopped, it moved, slowly, not forward exactly, but in a way that made the next direction obvious. People followed. There were no introductions, no warnings, no pauses to wait for stragglers. The figure did not repeat itself. When someone at the back asked what they had missed, no one answered. By the time the guide arrived, out of breath and apologetic, the group was already dispersing. Several people told him it had been the best tour yet. Complaints followed. Not about the ghost, but about the format. Some visitors were upset they'd missed the beginning. Others wanted to know why questions weren't allowed. A couple asked if the ghost could slow down. Ellen read each complaint carefully, then forwarded them to the tourism board, with a note that she wasn't sure how to classify them. The next tour night, the guide arrived early. The figure arrived earlier. Soon, it was common knowledge that if you wanted the full experience, you had to be on time. The ghost did not wait, it did not linger, and it did not acknowledge anyone who tried to engage it directly. One guide tried to improvise anyway. He made it halfway through a story before the figure turned and walked away. The group followed the figure. The guide was left alone, standing under a streetlight reading from a script no one was listening to. Attendance continued to climb. Ellen stopped pretending this was a novelty. She started treating it like an operation. She tracked start times. She compared routes. She noted which buildings drew longer pauses. The ghost never deviated, not once. And that, more than anything else, unsettled her. The town eventually did what towns always do when something stops making sense. It formed a committee. Ellen was asked to attend, though no one could quite explain what they expected her to contribute beyond taking notes. The meeting took place in the same municipal room where zoning variances were debated and parking ordinances were born. The chairs were arranged in a semicircle. Someone had brought donuts. The questions came quickly. Did the ghost count as a city employee? If not, was it a volunteer? If it wasn't either, was it a performer? And if it was performing, who was responsible for it? Ellen wrote everything down. Someone asked about liability. Someone else asked whether the ghost could be insured. The city attorney suggested adding language to the tour waiver, something vague enough to cover, quote, unforeseen participation, unquote. Another council member wondered aloud whether the ghost could be paid, since unpaid labor, even spectral unpaid labor, made him uncomfortable. Ellen reminded them there was no mechanism for that. Ellen stopped trying to explain what was happening. She focused instead on what could still be managed. Crowd control, routes, cleanup. The ghost did not interfere with any of that. It seemed uninterested in logistics, provided the story was told correctly and in the proper order. But Ellen was tired. Not frightened, not angry, just worn down by the quiet understanding that no matter how carefully she documented things, there would be no resolution. The situation wasn't escalating toward disaster, it was settling into permanence. She gave notice a month later. On her last evening in town, she joined the tour. She stood at the back of the group, listening as people whispered to one another, careful not to miss anything. When they reached the hotel, the ghost was already there. It moved when it always did. It paused where it always paused. At the final stop, it turned. For the first time, it looked directly at Ellen. There was no expression she could describe, no emotion she could assign to it, but it held her gaze long enough for her to feel unmistakably acknowledged. Then it nodded once, just once, and continued on. Ellen left town the next morning. She didn't make a show of it. She packed her things, returned her keys, and drove away while the square was still quiet. She took another municipal job a few counties over, one that involved fewer meetings and no evening calls. From time to time, she checked in. The tour was still running. The ghost still appeared. The route hadn't changed. The town had added a disclaimer to the brochure, though it didn't specify what it was disclaiming.
Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on Root Metrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. Second Half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
At Leidos, we make things smarter and more efficient. From saving the DoD over $645 million on digital modernization to already being done with this ad. Leidos, making smart smarter.
All right. Thank you for the call, Ellen. For what it's worth, I appreciate the attention to detail. Most people rush the ending. You didn't. If anyone listening is planning a visit, remember, arrive on time, don't interrupt, and don't improve the story. Some things don't like improvisation. This is The Night Signal. I'm Marianne Caldwell. We'll take another call after the break.
Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on Root Metrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. Second Half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
At Leidos, we make things smarter and more efficient. From helping the VA cut disability exam processing times by half to already being done with this ad. Leidos, making smart smarter.